how many people you meet who are simply buying a house because they feel this external pressure to fit in that generation or have that as a goal. When is the right decision for someone to buy a property, if at all, and become a homeowner?
Buying a house, you can do whatever you want.
What are some misconceptions that millennial and Gen Zs have about real estate? I think we all have reached a point where we're asking if we're ready to buy a house. So that's what we wanted to bring in, and then just discuss the transitions and a conversation on how to even start thinking about it.
When somebody like me is looking at all these barriers to entry, how do you start to make sense of it and not be so fearful?
This is the time. At your age, this is the time to jump on real estate. If I knew what I know now at your age, I would have started there. And I remember that was very engraved in me. Later on, I found out a lot of the good and bad about real estate. But what did you mean, or what did you mean when you made that statement?
I think the only thing making you block is
Marylene, can you hear us?
Hello, guys.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Amanda.
Well, Marylene, welcome to Wait, What's Next? We're so excited to have you. I need to introduce you. For anybody who has been following our conversation with real estate, I bought my first apartment on 2023, and we are interviewing today Marylene Notarianni, which was the agent that made it happen. It was a crazy story because I was just flirting with the idea, and at the time I was working in the same company as Marylene, and she just, took me from 0 to 100. And so I think I would have not been able to go through the process without you. So I'm very thankful. I'll always remember. This is a once in a lifetime experience. And so I thought it was really fun to bring you into the podcast and ask you all of the questions and have a conversation that I know many people that are in transition and wanting to start this conversation. I feel like they would gain a lot of value out of this. But thank you for joining us, Marylene.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Marylene, it's so nice to meet you. And
Nice to meet you, Amanda.
One of the things that me and Laura were talking about is we're on totally different sides of the spectrum when it comes to home ownership. Laura has a property. I do not. I don't even think that that's in my cards anytime soon. And we were talking about how you have a unique perspective into when is the right decision for someone to buy a property, if at all, and become a homeowner. So I thought that we would kick off our conversation with you, asking you, how do you know when somebody is emotionally, financially just ready to take that next step into homeownership?
So you're starting with an intense question because it's very intense. So we do not actually, when you are ready to purchase a property with you inside, okay? You should not have any pressure from the society, or you should not have any pressure from your surrounding, but you should know inside. And for instance, when I'm interviewing clients, I try to find out where they are in their life, because it has everything to do where they are in their life. And then if they are on the right spot, in that case, yes, the process will be smooth, and the process will be definitely a jump up for them, But if you're not ready inside, I can show you every single property, as much beautiful they are, even in your price point or even lower than your price point, you will always find something wrong. And that's when you see, so basically you don't know a client when it comes, if they're ready, until you go with them to see a property, and then you ask questions. The secret to know if they're ready or not is to ask questions. And there is some line, I have some test line, because of course, if somebody is ready or not, it's very important to me. It's very important to follow client with the same timing. So in that case, you ask questions. And then based on the questions they are replying to you and where they are in their life, you know if they are ready or not.
What are some of those questions that you ask? And if you can give us an indicator that they might be ready or they might not be ready based on those answers.
I mean, someone, for instance, Laura, you are from some different country. I'm French, and so I'm coming from France. And then here in the Bay Area, we have a lot of people who come from different countries. Like, for instance, when there is a strong emotional attachment to their country where they come from, this is a slowdown in terms of process to buy a house here. Because once you're buying a house, you have a sense of putting your root here, you know. You still have a strong attachment to your country. For instance, French people, France has a strong attachment to people, you know, they come over here. So it's difficult to pass that. And then, of course, the one thing you have is you always compare what you have there and what you have here, which buy a village over there which is a small house over here. So that's an easy comparison.
What was something that, because I came from a point of just thinking about it. When I had a conversation with you, I told Amanda this. I wasn't even ready or saving for years to even buy a property. I think at the time when I came with you, it was just more so of a dream and thinking I would like to just have property to start investing. And I remember my biggest prerequisite to buy a home was I need to make sure that it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, because in my mind, I always thought, even if I'm living there, I should be able to have somebody else to rent it, like the second half, to help me with the costs, or then I just can rent it fully. But I was no near ready to buy a condo. What were some indicators that you had with me to make you feel that I was ready to enter in that season in my life?
You know, buying a house is also growing. You know, it's really, and that's what you did, basically. You grow into the idea. So you work into a brokerage. So you were surrounded by realtors all day. You were into real estate, mood and energy. So you hear about housing all the time. So the seed was already there. And then when you asked me to show you property. So basically, you came with your family, and then I saw the drive, and then you start picturing yourself on every property we saw. Like, remember the first time when I showed you the property with a view over the marina? I mean, you saw yourself right with it.
Okay.
And then, so you had the drive. And that's what that we need. You need the drive, because in order to buy a property in a Bay Area, you really need to have the wish and the drive. And that makes already 50% of getting there.
Okay.
So after, of course, you have the financial aspect, because you didn't prepare for years before. Automatically, like when it came down to the loan process and the lending process, it was a little bit more chaotic. But however, we made it, and we passed the obstacle, basically.
I was just going to say that I think this is such an interesting perspective to take the emotional checks and balances, because I know Laura's story, she kind of made this decision on a whim. It wasn't like she had this as a big goal in mind. And Marylene, I think about some of my friends who are very much like, I'm saving money so I can buy a house, and I have this goal by being 35 years old or whatever age it is. And it makes me wonder then how many people you meet who are simply buying a house because they feel this external pressure to fit in that generation or have that as a goal.
I mean, it's an interesting question. You should not feel pressure to buy a house. Buying a house is very personal. You should not feel pressure from your family, from your surrounding, from the society. I think there is maybe a biological pressure, because if you get married and you have kids, this is a different story. You want to settle somewhere. You want to feel home. Home is social. You know, like home is definitely a social factor. How to put the family together, how to build your roots. If you have a child, how you're going to raise your child in that home. And that's really when you feel to buy a home. I think when you're starting to get married maybe and have a child, it's more the moment when biologically you feel to settle somewhere.
What is the biggest misconception that millennials have about? Because millennials are kind of like the generation right now. Younger millennials are the ones that are kind of entering that real estate world. I know a lot of Gen Zs are also looking into it, especially because there's many Gen Zs who are now building their own businesses and now they have that finance that is helping them and backing them up to make these type of decisions. But what are some misconceptions that millennials and Gen Zs have about real estate?
So, misconception is exactly what you're saying. Exactly. You think like when you buy a house, you think you're going to be broke, you know? It's like the same with a marriage. It's like you think because you are getting married, of course, it's a big moment of your life and a happy moment of your life. But you think like getting married it's going to make you like completely settle and rooted somewhere and being blocked, you know? I mean, I think the only thing making you block is kids because you need to be responsible and you need to bring them a stable environment for them to be as best as possible. Buying a house, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't block you. You can rent it out. A year later, you can resell it. Myself, I bought a house and I sold it 2 years later. I'm like, okay, this is not for me. Sell it. You know, you can whatever you do. You can live inside. I mean, you can do whatever you want with a house, actually.
I have a follow-up question because I remember something very vividly from my experience with you. And you said, how old are you? And at the time I was 29. I was about to be 30. And you said, this is the time. At your age, this is the time to jump on real estate. If I knew what I know now at your age, I would have started there. And I remember that was very engraved in me. Later on, I found out a lot of the good and bad about real estate. But what did you mean when you made that statement?
So because I'm a little bit older than you, and I actually start real estate later. I started real estate when I was 38 years old, you know? For instance, when I came over here and when I was married, if I knew real estate was so important in United States and for the Bay Area, actually, I would do everything to buy a house. You are young, you have the energy, and that's everything. You have the energy. And then that decision shapes the rest of your life. Having a house, you want to travel for a year. You can rent it out the house for a year. In the Bay Area, we are in one of the most expensive markets in the United States. So you can rent it out the house, it pay part of your mortgage or part of or everything. And then you can travel around during a year. You go in Asia, you go in South America, you go different parts of the world. But you still have a home here. And in meantime, it's taking values. If I would have buying a condo or a house when I was 32, I mean, I would be super happy. First of all, I would be almost at the end of my mortgage payment. And two, the difference in value in like 25 years, especially here, it's huge. To give you an example, the other day I was checking my clients who purchased a house 10 years ago and how much equity they got in their house. And some of them, they almost double the equity in their house. For instance, buy a house in Redwood City. They bought a house at that time was multiple offer, 15 offers. They were thinking they're crazy to buy a house at this price point. Exactly the same feeling today. But 10 years later, the house doubled in price. Mm-hmm. So that gives you an example. And then in meantime, that's true. In meantime, I mean, you're living, it's your house, you're paying your mortgage, you have interest deduction from your income tax. I mean, so that's all packaged, basically.
Marylene, from my perspective too, and I'm hearing you break this down, I'm like, this sounds great. It sounds like there's so much profit potential. And to your point, being able to see your clients 10 years ago, how much they've gained in that property value. I think that like such a big barrier of entry for me is the fear of being house poor And I'm in San Diego, so I'm Southern California. When I look at properties, it's either I like things that I think are just going to have way too big of a mortgage payment for me. And if a dishwasher breaks, I'm going to be down. Or I find something that is less, and then I'm like, well, this whole entire property needs to be flipped. So I'm having a hard time kind of understanding or justifying where making the right decision would exist. Is it buying a cheaper property and then waiting for the value to gain? What happens if an appliance breaks? Like, how do you balance all the extra payments? So I guess my question for you is, when somebody like me is looking at all these barriers to entry, how do you start to make sense of it and not be so fearful?
So yes, I was ready to say, first of all, it's fear. You let your fear talk. So basically, maybe, first you work on the fear. You will see basically housing a different way. It's a practical way to see it. It should not disrupt the way you live. Purchasing a property, yes, it's compromising. Yes, you're going to have to do some sacrifice. But at the end of the day, you should not sacrifice the way you live. I don't know the way you live, but and depend. Of course, let's say you do, I don't know, 3 or 4 trips a year in a foreign country, but maybe you do 1 or 2 during a few years. And then you are young. You need to think perspective. When you're buying real estate, the problem is the tendency of today, people think instantly. People think is now, in 6 months. But when you're buying, the timing for buying real estate is longer. The way to look at real estate is also, right now you are young, right now you are 30 years old. So where you are in your professional timing, your income is going to probably increase as well. And that's something you don't put some time in your idea. You are at the beginning of your career. So automatically, you're going to have, most likely, you're going to have your income increasing. You're going to have better position. It's exactly like when you are a student and you're taking a student loan. You're bargaining a little bit on what is going to be your future. So that's exactly the same mindset, if I would say. You are young. You are at the beginning. Probably you are with someone who is young in the beginning. So, but in 5 years, where you want to be professionally in 5 years. And that's a way to look at it. What kind of income you want to earn? That's going to reduce your fear. So it's going to be like a sacrifice maybe now. Yes, it's a compromise, but maybe it's not as big as you think. And then again, it should not lower down so much the way you live. It depends of what you want to do first. It's really personal. Buying a house is really, really personal.
To play devil's advocate, who might actually benefit from waiting or buying real estate?
Look, the person who's going to wait, it's the person who's going to think maybe the real estate is going to go down, which is possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. Tomorrow, we're going to have a similar financial crisis as we faced it in 2009. I mean, yes, that's going to be an opportunity. But even at that moment, you're going to need to have the vision to say, okay, the market is down. We have short sales. People are losing houses. Why are you going to buy a house at this point? So you need to have a vision. You see, and then people today who bought in 2009, I mean, they bought a house for what? $400,000 here. And today the house is $2.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about 50 years ago. We're talking about, 13 years ago, 12 years ago, a little bit more, when it was 2009, 2010. So 16 years ago. So in 16 years, you see how much of value went up in terms of housing. So, and then it's the saying, it's you buy a house and then suddenly something happened, because you're always going to have something happening you cannot control. A new president, a war somewhere, COVID, something is out of your control. So you need to, and then you're going to say, oh, what did I do? Why did I bought the house now? No, the value of the house is only when you are on the market. On the market to buy, on the market to sell. Until the house is on the market, whichever website can tell you the value of the house, no. You need to expose the house and your property to the public to know exactly what is the value of the house. You can, of course, you can always have an idea, but that's when having a house on the market, that's when you really know how much is your house. But you don't have to fear that if you buy a house. I mean, it's important for you, again, only if you sell the house or if you are on the market to buy a house. If you buy a house, most likely you didn't buy a house for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You buy a house for 10 years. And then you're going to see in 10 years where it's going to be.
I think that was, we talked about this with Amanda, and she asked me if, I mean, you know, I've had a few hurdles because I don't know if you heard, but there was a leakage in my apartment. So I had to, because of the laundry machine, all of that. And that comes with a lot of stress and a lot of things that you need to do. But then Amanda did ask me a question about regretting if something about those things made me regret my decision. And I told her, I think that was my answer. Because it's a long-term thing, it doesn't really affect it. And I'm not thinking of the value of right now. I'm thinking of what it's going to look like in 30 years. So whether or not the prices go up or down, it doesn't really matter for me because I'm playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, I think to remove the stress and the fear, you need to remove, I know it's difficult, but you need to remove the price and how much you pay for the house, you know, or how much you're going to pay for the house. And then all what you need to concentrate is have a good lender on your side, a good realtor on your side, who can crunch and really guide you through every step and crunch a number for you. And then you see with these numbers, okay, how these numbers going to disrupt your life, the way you're living, what you like, what can you afford, and that's a way to do it. And then, like I said, you are young. Most likely in 5 years, you're going to have a financial better position. You're going to probably step up in your job. And that's a way to look at it. And then in meantime, let's say you're going to buy today. In 5 years, you're going to have already 5 years mortgage payment done.
Marilyn, a lot of what you're saying sounds very big picture to me. And to Laura's point, it is very much the long game, looking at everything. And some of the issues I had with buying, you've kind of already addressed, whether it be maybe you travel a little bit less for a year or two, or maybe you decide you don't want this house in 2 years. You can always put it back on the market. And to your point, you don't have to sell if the market's good. I'm curious, do you think then, because my dad very much has made the point that when you buy, you're so much better off than all these people who rent. At this current stage this year, the way the market is there a reality that exists where renting can be a smarter decision? Or do you tend to think that buying a property ends up being the smarter decision when you look long term?
But again, it's personal. This is very, very personal. Nobody should make you any stress about you not buying or you buying. You know, this is very, very personal. If you don't feel comfortable to buy a property, don't buy a property. Invest your money in the stock market. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. If you are like more confident the stock market is going to be a vehicle for you to make more money faster, go for it. So, but at the end of the day, again, the sense of buying a house is not only buying a house and spend the money and see the house as of course, it's an investment. But at the end of the day, it's also good in terms of if you want to put your roots somewhere, you feel more stable with your life. I mean, myself, when I bought my house, I bought 2 houses. So myself, when I bought my own condo, for instance, when I bought my own condo, being from a foreign country, for me now it was here. Home was here, basically. It puts your foot more. And then that's true, you can turn your own properties the way you want. Being renter, suddenly if you landlord decide to take back the property, I mean, you are in jeopardy. And I have a friend who had to move 4 times in 1 year because each time they were moving somewhere, 3 months later, the owners wanted to take back the properties. Being so owner, you don't have to face that. I mean, and that's huge. To me, it was huge. You know, each time you're moving is a disruptor because it's time and you're using time, you know, and time is very precious. We don't see it, we don't value it the right way, but it's very precious. And each time there is a disruption, I mean, to get out of your goal, your road need to be pushed out of your goals. Basically, it's a disruptor. So of course, buying a house, you can have a leak, and that's a disruptor too. But that's your own way. You know what I mean? You can, if it's a leak, it's a leak. If you don't want to take care about it, of course, it's not the right things to do. But at the end of the day, it's your way. But most important, what I'm trying to say is really don't have any push from society, your parents, your friends. Try to listening who you are. Buying a house is buying who you are. Most of my clients, they buy a house the way the house look like them. The most of the time, I can see like what kind of housing they, and most likely they buy the house they like because it reflects who they are.
That's really interesting. I would be so curious to see what kind of house would reflect the way I am, for sure.
Yeah.
Laura, do you think your house reflects it, your condo?
1,000%. I think it does. Because I remember, honestly, we only saw my apartment. Was that the third apartment that we saw together?
No, we saw a bunch of apartments, remember?
Because we saw one.
Yeah, we saw the first one. You falling in love with the first one?
And then that one, I remember that one. I like that it had 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, but I didn't. It was low ceiling and it was very small. So you were like, it's okay. But I think that first one gave you answers and gave you a direction to take me to places that were more aligned. The second one was like another day. And then we saw 2 that night. And the second one was that lobby that it was beautiful location, all of that, but it only had 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it was kind of lofty. I loved it. That one was beautiful, but I knew in my heart, for my purposes, it wouldn't work because I always thought I need to be able to rent either the second half to get help from mortgage or be able to rent it for a couple that is able to use it, right? And so the third one was third time is a charm. We went to that third one. I remember walking in. You showed me 2 in that same building. And I remember the first one, it was very industrially and there was no wood or anything. And I felt it was very cold. And it felt even though it was almost the same, I just didn't vibe with it. And then I was thinking, it's very cold. Doesn't feel like home. And so we walked into the second apartment and it had wood all over the apartment. And that made the apartment feel warm. It almost made it feel like a cabin, but with the sophisticated look of like the industrial pieces and the high ceilings. So I was like, it has 2 bedrooms, it has 2 bathrooms, it has in-unit laundry. It's extremely pretty, natural light coming, everything. And I think that's what I felt like it was me in that way. So I definitely, it's very interesting that you're saying that real estate is very much also a very, not logical, but emotional decision because it's got a lot to do with where you are in life and how you're feeling and who you are with and like putting roots or not putting roots, which is very interesting because it is a massive financial decision that a lot of people make based on emotion. So it's very interesting to put it that way. I never really thought like that.
Yeah, because it's both. I mean, real estate, yes, it's a financial decision, it's numbers, it's budget, of course. But at the end of the day, it's also emotional. How much you can crunch the numbers, the way you want to crunch the numbers. I mean, why you're going to get attached to this house versus another one. I mean, that's your emotion. You know, and that change everything. The house need to talk to you. That's what I'm telling my client always. We need to know which house talks to you, you know, and that's the reason why I want to go with them, always go and show property with them. I want to ask them questions because question is going to make them understand better who they are, to know better house they're going to have. It's a growing experience, basically.
Yes. What is something that surprises you the most about first-time homeowners, first-time buyers?
What's surprising me the most was first-time home buyers. First of all, I'm always surprised. That's what is going on right now, okay? Right now, we are like with a rate being above 6, okay? So there's people slowing down and say, no, this is too much money. And because of the rate is too high, but if the rate will be 3.5, I will purchase. This is a very bad misconception. I mean, I think the biggest misconception is like buy when the rate is at 7%, because the price of the house you're going to pay, you cannot change, but the rate you can change. And that I'm always surprised how people getting stuck basically on the rates versus on the house. Because the minute, and we saw it this year, for instance, suddenly the rate went down in February and March. And suddenly a competition like that was crazy. And then it pushed up, suddenly we saw again 10 offers on the house. But it pushed up the budget of the people because suddenly they have to bid over $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, the listing price. And of course, and then plus is a frustration because you want to buy a house and suddenly you have the stress of the competition. And as much you don't want it, that's something you cannot control. But when you have a higher rate, actually, it gives you some opportunity. Yeah, some opportunity to access different houses because you have less people on the market. Of course, you have a bigger payment, but as soon as the rate goes down, you refinance and you keep the house.
I majored in economics, and I always remember this. When prices are up, rates are down. And when rates are up, prices are down. The only thing is the price will not change, but the rate will.
Correct.
So that's always something important because when the rates are up, most likely those prices are lower. You're going to find homes with lower price, which in reality, like if you really put the logical and mathematical part of it, that's when you should jump in. Because if you can lock in that lower price, then yes, you might have with high interest, but then to your point, the Fed is always going to be bouncing up and down the rates, and real rates catch up to that Fed rate. There is a correlation there. And so once the rates go down enough, you can refinance and then you can get a better interest rate with the same price. Am I correct? The price wouldn't change when you refinance, just the rate.
Yes, correct. It's correct.
Okay.
Completely correct.
Okay.
Yes. You cannot change the price. And then the price, of course, is based, your property tax, it will be based on your purchase price. So that's something to do as well. But it's also the accessibility. You will have houses staying longer in the market. You will have also more time to go back, let's say, to the house. You will go back to the house. You will have time to digest more. You will have maybe more questions. Because to me, the most important things you need to know when you buy a house is a condition of the house. It's exactly what you were saying. A house is a house and things can change every day. Today, you don't have leak. Tomorrow, you can have leak. And that can happen to everybody. And even a new house, that's what it is. He said, once I sold a brand new house and the plumber forgot to put the pipe back together. And then as soon as they opened the shower, it was all floating, So they have to move out for a week. The plumber came back. So you see, there is always something going on. And that's normal. That's life. Because life, that's what it is. You're having obstacles and you go and who challenge you and then you go over it and that's it. But yes, to me, for instance, I have a client right now. I have them since more than a year now, looking for the right house. So last year, the rate was too high for them. And then they become very active in February and March. And then again, because they were facing like higher competition. And now they're kind of quiet because the rate came up. And to try to explain to them that's not the right way to do it, actually. Because having more inventory gives you an opportunity to find a better house or what is a house is going to match you better. And that's to me, I'm fascinating about that because I'm like, why people have this misconception about it?
Yeah, Marylene, this has been really educational for me. And can I ask how long you've been in real estate?
16 years.
Okay. I think that's plenty long enough to call you an expert too. And I really appreciate that you kind of removed the societal pressure. You made it very clear that doing this should be because you're personally ready, you're emotionally ready. So I have to ask, because me and Laura go about back and forth about this too, with kind of demystifying the process. And so far from what I've learned from you is one of the things you should look at is also the number crunching component. So what do you say is the first step? How do you go about that? Now, let's say now I'm thinking, okay, I know rates are high in San Diego. To your point, that's actually not a bad thing. That seems like a good problem to have. So now I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, maybe I should explore this more. What's my first step?
Have a good lender on your side, a good lender, a good realtor. And this is a very key factor because you need to understand. A good lender who is going to explain to you and crunch the numbers with you is very, very a key factor. And somebody who can lead you into the transaction in terms of the numbers, like for the first step, contact a really good lender who can pre-approve you, but who is going to spend time and walk you around through the steps. And this is very crucial. And if you're not comfortable or by the numbers it's going to say, it is what it is. You cannot change. If you don't feel comfortable or that's very intimidating, it's okay. It's okay to say, no, that's not for me. I'm not comfortable at this time, or my income, or I'm going to have to compromise about my lifestyle too much to buy this house, and that's okay. Like I say, everything is okay. Buying a house is very, very personal.
Can you explain what being pre-approved mean and what people get affected? Will their credit score get affected? Because a lot of people, they say, like, let's get approved by a bank and immediately let the red flags go on because they're like, I don't want it to mess up my finances. Can you explain what that process is really quick? Because that for me was a huge, huge thing that it gave me the confidence to be like, oh, this is actually my purchasing power. This is where also gives you an idea of the price range where you want to be and gets you started on where you even start. So can you explain that a little bit? Because a lot of people might not even understand what that means.
Sure, I can explain, but I'm not a professional lender. I'm a realtor.
I know.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So when you're purchasing a house, the realtor is a pilot of the plane and the lender is a co-pilot. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they have to work together. But the most important for you need to approach a lender and you need to understand all your numbers, like what is your income? How today you manage your budget? What is the important part of your budget? Like, let's say it's pleasure or travel. What's the budget you don't want to crunch? You don't want to compromise to give up for the house. So you need to walk, like I said, like before, like you need to work with someone who is going to walk you through these steps and who is going to spend time with you. So like you're going to have, of course, so how to get pre-approved. So my advice is you always get pre-approved to your maximum number. What is your real capacity on the paper? Technically, I don't know. You can have a house. You can buy a house for $500,000. You can buy a house for $1 million. You can buy a house for $4 million. What is your maximum capacity based on your income today? Your maximum capacity doesn't mean that you have to buy a house. That's price point. You number you are comfortable with, and your maximum capacity can be two different numbers. Let's say you want to buy a house, $1.5 million, and your capacity reality, you can buy a house for $2 million. But $2 million, you feel very uncomfortable. So you don't want to have a pre-approval letter for 1.5. But if you go to 2, let's say if there is the right house, it's 1.6, you can purchase it. You have this clarity. So clarity is very important to me. So to have a lender who bring you clarity, like what kind of budget you're going to spend, how much leftover after you're going to pay all the property tax, the insurance, and the mortgage left, how much saving you want to do. This is something you should do with a lender. And if the numbers is going to be, you're going to be comfortable Of course, you're going to always have a moment where you're feeling comfortable because buying a house is stepping up. And stepping up is like pushing you out of the comfort zone. So, but it need to push you up without making you too scared.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is. So being pre-approved by a very good lender who is going to spend time with you, somebody who is highly professional, somebody who knows how to work with people, very, very, very important. And that's going to shape basically your decision.
This has been really enlightening. And Marylene, I really like Laura's question too about what surprised you the most about first time buyers. I think that just opened up a whole different perspective for me. So I wanted to kind of ask a complementary question to her question there about what is something then that nobody really prepares home buyers for, because I wish we learned this in school. How great would this be to learn this in education? But unfortunately we don't, and we're just thrown out to figure it out. So what's something that you don't think homeowners are necessarily prepared for?
This is a good question. I think patience and acceptation. If it's happening, it's happening. Anyway, I really believe what is meant to be for you is meant to be for you. In other words, the universe is going to put you where you have to be. I say, why suddenly? Because being a realtor, what I'm seeing sometimes is like, why is this couple but this house versus other couple? And why this house went to these people instead of these people? And then it's really what it is. It's the universe is going to put you need to be positive and confident and believe the energy. And the universe is going to put you where you have to be. It's really like this. I know it's kind of out of the mathematics and the numbers, but it is what it is. Because again, it's reflect who you are.
I actually can attest. I can attest to this because I remember. I mean, listen, this could have been my own personal experience, but I do think finding the right agent, and that agent typically, because Marylene was the one that was in charge of helping me find the best lender. When one lender didn't work out, she found the next one. She was like, "Don't worry about it. Even if I have to bring in like 10 lenders, I don't care, but we're gonna get through this." And I think having that type of support is very important through the process. I do think it's very important, if not the lender, because eventually you will work with one, but having that agent that has the seniority, that has been in a lot of difficult cases, that they make you feel like they got you no matter what happens. I think that's so important. And somebody who knows the industry and who knows where they're working at. I think that is biggest thing because only they will be able to help you navigate any uncertainty that will come, because they will come. One thing is looking for the house and, it's just ready. Do I want to move forward? But I remember the moment we were in contract, it was like a long month of paperwork and working with the lender. I mean, that's when I truly saw the value that Marylene as an agent had. Because through the process, I was able to come to her. Never met with anybody in person. I was on the phone. She would call me like, we're working on this, working on that. The lender was very impressed, and she has amazing people that brought in and worked with us. Michael, I always remember him. And it was just, even though it was tedious work and a lot of things that you need to bring in and talk about and go to the banks and go to your job and all of those things. But I think when you have the right support, it really makes a difference. So that would be my advice. But to wrap us up really quick, I want to end this episode with you, Marylene, finishing this question or finishing this sentence for the people that are listening today who are wondering whether buying a home is their next step. Finish the sentence. I want you to remember what.
So you just have to be very prepared. If this is the right moment for you, if you feel to buy a house, you need to listen yourself, basically, to find out who you are and what is the right moment for you, not for someone else. Don't let anyone else push you to buy a property. You're not going to appreciate the right value of the property. So, and then be prepared. Laura said, having the right lender in place, having the right people in place. There is a lot of stuff online. Yes, you can educate yourself online, but you cannot have the experience online. because only you going through, you're going to start to have the experience and have exactly like this, like somebody has enough maturity to know how to have you back, basically to manage your stress, because during the purchase of your house, you're going to go through major stress. Because every night you can say, this is the right things. Why did I disrupt my life? Every night during 30 days, it's going to be the longest days of your life and the longest months of your life. And it's like, why did I do that? And then the day you got the key, say, why did I do that? You're going to still questioning even after the purchase. But it's after a while, you're going to figure out really like, okay, this was the right things to do for me.
To wrap it up, I would say it's very on point, and not to get energy and vibe and all of that, but when I was going through the process, it really felt very seamless. It felt like the apartment found me rather than I found it. The experience found me. Even though we had a lot of barriers, we had to do a lot of follow-ups. Towards the end, it was getting to the point where Marylene even was like, we're done. We're not going to provide everything else. Like, don't accept the mortgage. Like, we're done. And so even having that person that is advocating for you was very helpful, but it just worked out. And this is to say, of course, it's a huge financial commitment. I'm not expert. Amanda's not an expert. We do have Marylene that has 15 years working as a realtor agent and has been in the industry. But at the end of the day, it is something that needs to feel right for you. And it also needs to feel like it's happening at the right time. And you'll know that it's meant to be, that it's working out for you. Even though there was a lot of challenges, I felt certain. And when I got the keys, like I was so sure that it was the right decision. I never felt, oh my God, I have an apartment. Like, what am I going to do? Never felt that. It's been working out for 3 years. I've been able to rent it out. I will say I grew up so much with it because it's a new experience, and it really made me feel that I needed to enter that state in my life and just be responsible for something that was of high value, besides the leakage and all of that, which again is not perfect. But I do think that it added a lot of value into my life in terms of learning new things, right, that I would have never done. So yeah, I hope this conversation brought light to all of you who are in the transition and thinking, do not beat yourself up, because again, this is a massive decision. And I think these brought a lot of clarity. I want to thank you, Marylene, for joining us today, for being so open, for giving us the real conversation about real estate that people don't typically are kind of scared to talk about. And forever grateful for the support that you gave me 3 years ago and buying my apartment. So thank you for being here today.
Inviting me. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much to talk about real estate. It's my patience. It's my passion. So,
You love it. Marylene, let's do a little plug in here. If people in the Bay Area want to find you or want to even just have a conversation, where can they find you?
So they can find me, send me an email, frenchmary2@gmail.com, or by phone, 650-454-5470.
Okay, perfect. And it's just easy that they can just start talking to you. And
you can always but they say, don't be scared to say no also, If it's not for you, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Just be comfortable with your decision. And that's the most important and the most rewarding.
Yeah, I think that was very important. I never felt pressure. I knew that I could walk back up and walk away at any point in time. And just because an agent is working with you, don't feel like now you just have to buy. That's not the case. This is not buying shoes. This is buying homes.
Yeah.
And so don't feel pressure.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Any last words, Amanda?
No, Marylene, it was such a pleasure to talk to you. And I really appreciate you making it clear, too, that buying a home isn't everyone's next step, and to really listen to yourself and make the decision that's ultimately right for you and your individual needs. So very enlightening. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, both of you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, of course.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.